Hey, what's up, guys? I took possession of a rig here, and part of that is we have a gen set right in this little dog box over here. Now, I have a little history on this, but all in all, I don't really know a whole lot about it. So I don't trust anything that I was told, right? Because, well, you don't know. So what I want to do is I'm going to check a few things. First of all, I had to put this battery on boil because the voltage was a little low. Then I'm going to look for anything obvious, right? I'm going to check some fluids, check the oil, check the air filter, try to get a little bit of a history on this through looking through that stuff before I start it, right? So check it before you wreck it, right? It's easy to do. Check a few things before you hit that start button because there's a lot of times things happen and it's during that period where it's like, ooh, let's see if it runs, and you hit start and it makes all kind of crunching noises or things like that. So let's take a quick peek, dig into this, and see what we can find uh, about the history of it. So as I'm going through, when I'm looking for things, when I don't know the whole history, um, I'll look for little tips and hints, and I see oil back there, right? So why is there oil back there? Where are they using that oil? And are they using that oil in this, or are they using that oil somewhere else? So if they're adding oil, or what? So let's dig through a little bit. If you look right down there, this little dog box, there is the dipstick. All right, so let's pop this thing out of there and see what we see. Oh boy. All right, so looking here, that oil is all the way up to here. All right, so that's our first problem. Let's go ahead and wipe that off and check again. Let's get it back in the holy hole. Where's the hole? Where's the hole? I can't see the hole. I can't see nothing in here. Oh, there's the hole. Is that the hole? There's the hole. All right, let's shove that back down in there and let's pull it out again. All right, yeah. Okay, so let's wipe this off one more time. Let's get it into some light so we can see what's going on and determine where we're at. Okay, so there is the low line, there is the high line right here. Okay, the oil is landing all the way up here. So we are definitely seeing too much oil in this thing. Now that's telling another story. Now, a lot of these units are controlled by one variation of a generator controller or another. And sometimes they have, yeah, that oil's all the way up to right here. Okay. So that's significantly past the fill line. So why did they do that? Well, odds are the generator was shutting down for one reason or another. And during the shutdown process, if there's protection on the unit, it may register a code saying low oil pressure. And that's because the controller is still reading the function of the engine. And as the RPMs die down because it's shutting down for another reason, it'll throw that code, low oil pressure. And then rather than check things, people will say, oh, well, it must be low on oil. Let's throw a cord in there or something like that. So let's take the next step. First of all, I'm going to get some of that oil out of there. uh, and because we don't, diesel engines, oil pressure, and all of that stuff works together for the injectors and fun stuff like that. But more importantly, I want to see if I can determine why it was shutting down. So up here, right in that neck of the woods right there, that is a temperature shutdown switch. And what that does is if this generator is running hot, it's going to protect the unit by shutting it down. And I see our overflow over here, over there, that's bone dry. All right, so I'm gonna pop a cap off here. I see some stains up here. That's usually an indication that fluid is escaping the lid. Now it's not, it's right there. Okay, so it's not overly bad, but if I look down in here, that's bone dry, right? So there's nothing in that unit. So if this is full, it's probably because it pulled reserve from there and it was just progressively gotten worse and probably started overheating again. So let's check that out. And here, right on top of this here, we can see that there is evidence of oil buildup there, maybe some blow by. There's a there's a overfilled blowout on these sometimes, and if they are overfilled, it'll blow it out to a certain extent. But see it down here, we got evidence of more oil. Okay, so let's dig a little bit deeper into this before we start it. All right, because it may start up, but I want to make sure I check everything before I fire it up. Now, the next thing I like to do when I get a unit that I don't know anything about, especially if there was signs of previous issues, so I'm going to pull out this air filter. Okay, let's pop that out of there. Let's get a look at it. It's not too bad. I've seen worse. But what I will do is when I'm what I will do when I'm checking these things out is I'm going to give them a sniff. Okay, that'll tell me a little bit, like if there's exhaust leaks blowing through here and it's pulling back in, or if they've used any ether. All right, so if there's a starting issue and they're having a hard time getting it started, they'll be squirting ether in it, and that stuff leaves a little bit of a footprint. And normally it's nice little, you could smell it in the filter. But okay, moving on. Okay, right here we have an inline fuel filter going to the fuel line here, and it has some fuel in it, but for all intent and purposes, it's empty. So I don't, it shouldn't be, all right, but that's giving me some sort of indication that there might be a fuel draw issue. You have a lift pump here, and that's pulling fuel up from wherever the source is, which we'll find out. But it'll pull fuel up into here before the engine's fuel pump takes over. But that's just a lift pump. That's not meant to run the system. It's just meant to bring things up to make it a little bit easier on it. So I'm going to see if this thing's going to draw up any fuel. If it does draw up fuel and then it loses fuel again, that's going to tell me that there's some sort of air leak in there. And diesel engines do not like aspirated fuel. So let's double check this fuel filter and fuel situation before we get too far along. Okay, so we got a Intellite 4 MRS16 controller, and what I'm doing now is I'm going through some of the history of this to try to tell me some things of, like here, battery under voltage. All right. Looks like for the most part, let me go back. I'm looking for any kind of shutdown. Now, if there's a set point for overheat shutdown or something like that, and they change the temperature, or something like that. So I have to go into the programming here to see. So it's still calling for battery. It may be a connection thing. So let me double check that and see what we get. Okay. So there's definitely something not going on here. It's saying battery under voltage. Getting the voltage that I'm supposed to be getting. Uh, let's uh, let's kick it up a notch. It's drawing some amperage. Okay. Now we got to figure it because there's definitely something electrical going on here. So let's go look for a short somewhere. All right. So there's definitely something going on with this juice box here because it's giving me the voltage that I need. But as soon as I put a load on it, it plummets. So what I'm going to say is this thing has been sitting a while, and the controller continues to pull information down to the point where it can no longer pull it. So there's draw on the battery, right? So it just drained this battery down to nothing, which may mean it might have destroyed the battery. So we're going to check that real quick before we move on. All right, so I got myself a battery tester thingamajigger. Let me turn the charger off. I'm going to disconnect that. And then I'm going to remove these cables because when I use this tester, I just want to make sure nothing is connected to the battery. Because basically the little battery tester thingamajigger puts the battery under what's like a start load, which is essentially shorting the battery out for all intent and purposes. And we don't want things happening anywhere other than the battery. All right, nothing may happen, or bad things could happen. So we'll just make sure and just disconnect everything so we're sure that nothing bad is happening. All right. So let's go ahead and plug this little guy in and get our voltage. Okay, it's in the green. All right, it's telling us we have voltage. Okay, see that there? But now we're going to put it under a load and see if it goes to weak or to bad. Going from there to there, so doesn't like it when a load's put on. So let's drop another battery in there and see what we find, and we'll leave this one on boil. See if it holds charge after that. Okay, here we go. Got us another one. Let's expose things and see what we got. All right. So we're going to throw you here. Throw you up on there. See what we got. Oh, that's all the way north of 12. And see how it's not dropping. It's staying in that range when you put it under a load. So we are good. So let's drop this in there and see what we get. It looks like there's some addition things here that are added to the battery, so it's running something else, but we don't care about that right now. All we care about is the generator. So that's all we're going to hook back up. All right, there's some buildup under there. Well, it's not too bad. All right, so let's go ahead and clean this up. Make sure it's just nice, bright copper exposed. Looks good. Drop that ground cable on there. Like I said, I'm going to leave the other thing that was plugged into it disconnected, just so we're working on the generator. Because that's all I care about right now. And check under here. Looks good. It's got that little bit of draw spark, and that's the controller that's drawing power. Even though it's just slight power, it's still power. And left unchecked or unmaintained, it'll drain this thing down to nothing. And then once it goes too low, it's never coming back. All right, so let's push the button now, see what happens. Oh, now it's doing things it's supposed to, making noises. There's fuel. Okay, well, time has passed. It's the next day, but you guys know a guy gets sidetracked sometimes, and gets tied up in other things. But we did get this fired up yesterday. That's a good thing. Fired up, but it was still rattling around in my head last night, because there's things that worry me a little bit. I dove into the controller, and there were two stored alarms for temperature shutdown. Now, this truck was in an area that gets really, really hot, and it could just be that. It could be a situation where, so you see right here. Okay, that's sometimes that can be indication of what's called wet stacking. All right, where the engine's not running to the efficiency that it should be, and unburned fuel and stuff like that gets into there and goes through there and out of here and out of here. And, it's not good things. So basically, what's likely is they just had the generator running for long periods of time without any load on it. Okay, and that's not a good thing. These things like to work and they like to run efficiently. And the same thing can happen if you, for example, if you oversize a generator. When you're sizing out a generator, you want it to be close to what you need, right? So if you use a couple thousand watts and you have a 30,000 watt generator there, you're not working that generator to its capacity. So things like this will happen. It's called, like I said, it's called wet stacking. Now, it's not excessive, and I don't think I have a big issue, right? But I have had experiences where it was so extensive that it actually plugged up the exhaust to a certain extent, and that was causing the overheating. Okay, I'll show you an example of that in a minute. But I don't think that's where we're at with this, at least not yet. But I'll check the exhaust on this and see where we're at. Get this cleaned up a little bit and make sure it's not plugged up. There's a strap that belongs around here that looks like it. Well, it's no longer there. I don't see evidence of it in here anywhere, so we'll have to address that. Get that exhaust. Oh, we'll have to address that. Get this exhaust flange back on there to keep this nice and tight. So, but here, let's go look at something. Okay, so this is this is an exhaust, a muffler that I cut open, all right, to give you an example of what I was talking about. It's pretty cool though. If you look here, so there's all that mess. This sits up there, and what happens is exhaust comes in through here, goes around through here, then down into this collection box, as it were. Okay, and then once it goes through into this little collection box there, you got that there. Those are the little exhaust holes, muffler holes that the exhaust escapes from, goes into this collection box, out of here, and then out of the exhaust. Well, if you can see this is kind of wet looking in there. And that is where some of that wet stacking actually plugged up some of these holes, and the exhaust wasn't as efficient as it should be. Okay, you can still see inside there, there's actually still oil fuel mixture sitting down on the bottom of that. We got the oil back down to level on this, so we're going to fire it back up again, check the exhaust. But for all in all, I think we're okay. Just got a couple of things to fix up there. So welcome to Yanmar, and this is a 15 kW unit. Nice efficient, uh, nice efficient unit. So anyway, I think we got it started, and now I have to go through the rest of this truck, see if I can't whip her back into shape. So I mentioned our next trip was going to be under here. And so let's go ahead and shoot under there, because I want to show you something related to oh, that fuel tank right there. Oh, 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 oh. Okay. So we're under here. And right up top here, we got our fuel lines. And what happens sometimes is a guy will, let me see if I can get us a better light. Hold on. Okay, so what we have here is over here on this half-inch line, okay, they got a T right there feeding the generator, which if you're just running the generator with the truck down, okay, that's fine, right? But if you have something that you have to run while the truck is running, that they're going to fight over who gets fuel, the truck or whatever equipment you're running, and the manufacturer, they have issue with it, you know. But more times than not, if the truck's not running, okay, and you're running your equipment or whatever, it's okay. But one thing Isuzu did, and they didn't announce it very much, but you see that little loop right there, okay? Those two ports, and they started this right around 23, where the trucks come standard with these extra draw tubes in them, right? So you got a draw tube here and a return line here. It's just looped together. So you just take that off and tie in whatever you want to tie in. You used to have to order that with the truck. If you knew and you were going to be ordering a platform, you could order it with these in there. Otherwise, you had to drop one in the tank, drill into the tank, and they wanted to keep people from doing that. So they just started making it standard. So anything over newer than 23, maybe on the tail end of 22. But check your tank if you're going to be building an Isuzu platform. Check your tank and see if you have those. I believe I have to double check, but the left here from our orientation, but this side here is your draw, your supply line, and this side here is your return line. So pretty cool. It's standard on all of the Isuzus now. Um, and yeah, just so you can tie into whatever extra equipment you're going to be using. So pretty cool. So I'm going to replace that line there. Okay, get that T out of there, replace that line as well as the return line there, and then just bring those in here, drop them in there, and that'll be all we're doing under here. So let's get to that. Let's take a trip under the truck here, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. We were able to straighten out that fuel situation. So if you see up in here now, uh, over to the right there, we were able to replace the main fuel lines for the draw and return for the truck. And over to the left, we were able to update the main draw lines for the equipment that's on the truck. So we got them going into the supply side, or the supply and draw on the extra tubes over there. So that's all done and cleaned up. So let's go take a trip inside. Oh, whew. Getting too old for this. Well, y'all, I got this thing pulled outside. We're going to fire it up, put it under a load, because we got all the fuel line changed out, ready to go. I know that I feel comfortable with everything that's going on with this genset now. I feel like I got a good handle on it. So let's go ahead and push this button. These guys over here, PDG, Powerhouse Diesel Generator, they're down out of Valdosta, Georgia. They do all kind of neat stuff with generators. So they send me all the equipment I need, and they do a lot to help me out. I got a bunch of fun projects going on with them. So if you're looking for a generator, give those guys a shout. Like I said, they're down out of Valdosta, Georgia. Powerhouse Diesel Generator. But anyway, they're not sponsoring this video or anything. There's a good group of guys. Let's go ahead and hit this power button. Go through the startup process. Fuel's priming up just like it should. Let's listen to this bad boy fire up. All right. Okay, so we got it fired up. I'm going to let it run for about a half hour. Get it up to temperature, make sure it's doing what it's supposed to be doing, running where it's supposed to be running. And I don't know, I think we're good. But the idea is just make sure when you get a unit in and you're not too sure about it, or even if you have a bunch of rigs and you got some that you haven't ran for a while, before you fire it up and send it out, run it through its paces, check some things. Like I said, check it before you wreck it, because these things, they cost a few bucks. So you don't want to make that mistake and just hitting that start button and hoping for the best. But anyway, we got the generator going. It's running like it should. There's some other stuff I'm going to be doing to this platform. I'm going to refinish the floors, clean it up, put some new tools in it, put some new equipment in it. So check back for an update on that. But anywho, we went through it. Our little Yanmar 15 kW unit's running like it should. It's hooked up like it should be. I think it's only just under 800 hours on it. And that's basically break-in time for one of these. So it's got a long life out in the field as long as it's taken care of. All right. Hope you guys had fun. We'll see you on the next one.